Hello, this is the Creative Mojo podcast, episode number 5. My name is Johanne and I'm coming to you from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And a big hello to all new and returning viewers. It's really great to have you join me for a little bit of a chat about knitting today. So welcome. I have a few things to show you today and a few things to talk about. I have a whip, which is exciting, and I have a finished object is more exciting than a whip. I have lots of whips always. So I have a few of those to show today. I don't have quite as much knitting today as I have in previous weeks. It's been a busy week for me with work and lots of meetings and things that I've had to go to. And I'm not big on knitting at meetings and things. I don't mind doing it if it's a situation with people who know me fairly well and maybe already know that I'm a knitter, but I feel a bit odd doing it when I attend meetings that have people that don't know me and perhaps don't know other knitters. I don't know. And I just always worry that they might think that it means that I'm not paying attention or whatever, which of course as knitters we know we are and we can pay attention while we knit, but I don't like to give that impression. And so when I have a lot of meetings and things, I don't have as much knitting time at home, and so I just didn't get quite as much done this week, but I did get a couple of exciting things done and worked on. And so let's start right in with those. And the first thing I have to show you today is my finished Vertices Unite by Stephen West. This is a project that I've been working on for a little while now, couple of months. I can't remember exactly when I started it, but I started it, got a little bit done, and then sort of put it aside for a while I worked on some other things. And then I picked it up in earnest a couple of weeks ago, and I've been chugging away at it. I didn't show it last week because I hadn't actually done anything on it last week, but I did get back to it this week and I finished it, and it's very exciting. It's huge, I will start with saying. And I'm not going to be able to even show it all to you, I don't think, here on the podcast, but I will put a picture of it in its glory at the end of the podcast, so you can see a full picture of it. But I will give you a kind of an idea. So this is a modular shawl that you knit in a bunch of sections. That you knit a section and then you pick up the stitches and knit another section, and it uses 5 different colors. And what else do I want to tell you about this? I knit the large. There's 2 sizes in the pattern. There's a smaller size and a larger size, and I knit the larger size, and it's pretty large. For a lot of people, you might actually prefer the smaller size. This is kind of close to blanket size, but it'll be good for me in terms of, I think it'll be really useful for work in the winter. When I'm doing a lot of stage management, I often in the theaters when we're particularly, sometimes in the rehearsal halls, but definitely in the theaters when we're in tech and spending, long days sitting in the theater doing tech, it can often be very cold. I find that for some inexplicable reason, the stage management table where we're set up in the middle of the theater while we're doing all of our tech tends to always be under a cold air vent. So I'm always cold, and this will be awesome to have, to wrap up and keep warm when I'm working. So yes, it goes, this section here was section 1, and then this was section 2 down the bottom. So you can see sections 1 and 2. Section 1 is huge. This was section 3 down here. Oh, and then I don't remember how it went. I think for 5 was this stripe section here and section 6. And then when you finished all the sections, you pick up stitches all the way around the huge thing. It's longer than my wingspan by quite a bit. I would say that this is probably 6.5 feet wide and about 2 feet long. I don't know if you can see all the way at the bottom because I can't see my camera now, but and so you pick up stitches all the way around the outside of it, and then you do 3-stitch I-cord bind off all the way around, which took me a long time. That took me about, I would say total knitting time, probably about 6 hours. I counted it, and it was, give or take a couple of stitches, it was 900 stitches around the outside. I think it was 900, but I you know, when you're counting that many stitches, I wasn't completely sure that I counted right, and I didn't want to go back and count it yet a second time. So I think it was approximately 900 stitches all the way around the edge, and with the I-cord bind off, you knit 3 stitches for every one you bind off. So it was 2,700 stitches to bind this sucker off. As I said, it's knit in 5 colors. So the first section was in, I knit this out of Skein Top Draw Sock, which is one of my very favorite yarn bases ever. As if you've watched a few of my episodes already, you probably already know, because I knit lots with it and talk about it all the time. But the 2 colors that I used here were the light color, the pale kind of creamy color is a color called French Macaroon, and the darker, the purple in there was called Thistle. So that was that color. And then down here, this is actually a striped section as well. It's a bit harder, you know, if I get close you can see. So the sort of taupey brown, purpley browny kind of color, it's called Cherub, and the green in there is Wild Apple. So that's 4 colors. Then this was the 5th color, which is knit all on its own. That's a color called Dapple. It's beautiful. It's coming out actually pretty true there. This is the Thistle all on its own. As you can see, it's a beautiful purple, beautiful kind of sort of slightly reddy purple, as opposed to not as much blue, I don't think, in this. Beautiful color. And then the I-cord bind off all around the outside is the green, the Wild Apple. So yeah, that's this. I'm really, really pleased to have it off the needles. I finished it last night, and I then wove in all the ends. There were about, probably 25 ends in it. I knit it on a 3.5 millimeter needle. The only other thing I would say about it is that I'm not wild about, you'll see here that the way that the pattern has you knit this stripy section, and as you're going, you're picking up stitches along the edge from this section and knitting them together, and it left kind of the stitches got kind of loose right there, which I'm not super crazy about, but that's a small thing. Overall, I'm really happy with it. I love the colors of it, and I think I will get lots of wear out of it. So that's the Vertices Unite by Stephen West, and that's my one finished object for this week. In terms of whips, I guess I have a half finished object, because I got some more work done on these. These are my Fawn and the Fox socks out of Fawn and the Fox Fibers, Fawn and the Fox yarn, I think it's called. She's an Alberta dyer, and this is her Badger base, which is BFL nylon. I raved about this quite a bit on my last episode, I guess. So I got one sock finished. I do my socks top down. So this was 72 stitches on a 2 millimeter needle. Nice dense fabric, but nice and springy too. So I was at here, so I finished up to the toe on that sock, and I got the cuff and a little bit more done on sock number 2. So magic looping those, as I said, on a 2 millimeter needle. These are the Knitter's Pride Dreams, the wooden ones. They're my needles of preference. I have lots of these, and as I mentioned in my last episode, I prefer wooden needles, these kind of wooden needles. I like the carbons because of the carbon, the Knitter's Pride carbons, because of the carbon. I like needles with a little bit of grip, and I was thinking a bit about why that is as I was knitting away on my shawl. And it has a lot to do with the way I knit. I'm a English style thrower, and so when I knit, I actually let go of the needle for a moment to throw my yarn around, and I won't show it to you now. There is a little video on in my YouTube channel that I put up for another reason, but it's called How I Knit, and it shows it that there's actually a moment where I'm sort of letting go of that needle, and so having a little bit of grip really helps. The metal needles, I find, and really slick needles can sometimes slide out of my stitches and just drop right out, especially if they have a little weight to them, and if I only have a couple of stitches on the needle. That's happened to me a few times. So I realized that's why I like needles with a little bit of a grip or a drag on them, is that they're far less likely to slide out of my work when I'm knitting. So yeah, I'm working on those. Again, I highly recommend this yarn. Here's her label. As I said, she's an Alberta dyer. She's from Olds, Alberta, which is about an hour and a bit, an hour and a half maybe, north up the highway from Calgary. She's got lovely yarn. I actually just ordered another skein in a different color of this same base and the same yarn, and so I'm looking forward to getting that. So that's my other, that's the other whip that sort of got the most amount of work this past week. I did a little bit more on my 2 at a time socks. I was talking, these are my first ever 2 at a time, and my first ever, wow, that's showing up more intensely blue than it actually is. It's a kind of gray and overcast day again today, and I don't have the best, I like to use, my first few episodes I tried to use natural light, which I prefer and is better. This is where I am in the house today, and where I was last week I'm relying a little bit more on house light, so colors are not quite as great. That shows that a little bit truer to color. This is a galesart sock blank which is this lovely thing. It's a double sock blank, so it pulls it's knit 2 strands of yarn together all the way through the sock blank, so you're pulling 2 strands out at the same time. It's in a color called Lady Sings the Blues. So yeah, these are coming along. They're a bit slow going because of the 2 at a time and the kind of the ramen noodle kind of way that the yarn is when it pulls off the sock blank. They tangle on each other a little bit, and I find it slows me down. But it's not going too badly because I haven't spent tons of time on this, and I thought at first, oh, this is going so slow, and then I remembered, yeah, but there's 2 socks on here. Usually if I'd only got that much of one sock done in an evening, I'd think I was not knitting very much. But I keep having to remind myself, it's double that because there's 2 of them. So that's not too bad. And I think these will get some more attention in the next week or so and hopefully get onto the heel. I'm going to do my first ever slip stitch heel on these, and not slip stitch, sorry, I'm lying. Again with the lying. I'm going to do, gosh, what do they call it? Short row. I'm going to do short row heels on this for the first time. So that's something new for me. And we'll see how that goes. That's so that I don't have to take them off the needle. It's from what I understand, it's easier when you're doing 2 at a time. So these are also on a 2mm. These are 64 stitches. They might be coming out a little small. They may end up being for my sister or someone else with slightly smaller feet than me. Also on a 2mm, I think maybe 2.25mm. These are the carbons, and it's a 40-inch cable instead of the 36 that 32, 36, instead of the shorter one that I usually use for magic loop. So there's those. And the last work in progress that I have to show you today is something new I cast on a couple of days ago. I had one of those moments, you know, when you get, I was avoiding doing the edging, the I-cord edging on the shawl, and I got obsessed with the idea of starting something new, and I was looking at a whole bunch of projects, and I came across a beautiful shawl and went, that's it, that's what I want to do. So the pattern that I've got a tiny little cast on. That's all I did of it, but now that I've actually finished that other shawl, this will get quite a bit more love, I think, in the next little bit. So the pattern that I'm working on for this is this beautiful, let's see if I can, Summertide shawl by Helen Stewart. It's predominantly lace. It's a little bit of, the first bit here is a little bit of garter stitch, and then it goes into some lace, and then into more lace, and it's 2 color, as you can see. So it uses a fair amount of 2 skeins of yarn, and the yarns I decided to use for this, these are 2 colors that I picked up specifically to go together, and I just thought they were perfect for a pattern called Summertide, because these I think will make a really beautiful summer color shawl. So this is hedgehog fiber sock. I picked these up last summer when I went to the Stockinette Zombies Knitpocalypse retreat in Minnesota. And if you can see, that's not bad for colors there. This is, you know, very colorful. This color is called Exploding Peacock. So you can probably see why. White base, but with lots and lots of beautiful color pop. There's pretty much every color in here, I think, looking at the little bit I've knit. And that's going to be the first part of the shawl, which is the garter stitch, and then the first part of the lace. And then this is going to be the bottom lace. Wow, that's really, really super good. It's not quite so neon in real life. It's coming across a bit more neon, but it's pretty green. It's called Shamrock, and I felt like these two together were going to be a beautiful sort of field of flowers and bright green grass kind of shawl. So yeah, I'm looking forward to spending some quality time with that, as we say. I'm knitting these on what size of needles did I write down? They're 4mm needles, and these are on my signatures. Contrary to what I said about wooden and stuff, these are actually metal needles. I do enjoy these. These are really nice needles, and they're nice for lace because they got a pretty good point. These are, I think, not the pointiest of the ones that they make, but I do have to be a little bit more careful with these because, as I said, they will kind of slide out of my work a little easier if I'm not careful. So I'm not quite as fast of a knitter on these, but I do enjoy working with them. And for a metal needle, they're still nice and lightweight, I find. So I enjoy those. So those are the projects that I worked on this week. I did do a few more squares on my blanket. I'm not going to show you that today because it's, I think I added 5 more squares, but I don't want to show that. I'm trying to add a few more squares every week right now because I'm working on the Blanket Blitz KAL for Shannon Socksetra's podcast for her KAL. Trying to make some headroad on that blanket, but I don't feel like I want to necessarily show it every week and show 5 more squares. I'll probably show it I might show it next week, or I might wait till when that KAL ends and sort of show the progress I made over the period of time. So yeah, I guess I should tell you what the bags that my projects were in. This is the 2 at a time socks, and it's in this beautiful bag by SuburbanStitcher, and this is the shawl, and this is one of my favorite bags. I collected for a while a lot of bags with sugar skulls on them. I really love that sugar skulls pattern, and I have a lot of bags that have that. This bag comes from Madbird on Etsy, and it's a sort of medium-sized drawstring. My bag of choice is a drawstring bag. I really like them. I just like the way that you can kind of squish them and I can throw them into my purse or my backpack or whatever. And I like the fact that they'll sit open when you want them to, but you can close them up. If I'm pulling the yarn, I can sort of pull this and still pull the yarn out, and there's no zipper or anything to tag on. It also kind of will become a yarn bowl if you need it to by turning the sides down. They have a flat bottom so that they sit up on their own. So yeah, I really like this one. I said it's sort of a medium size, and the bags that I make myself are all drawstring at the moment. I am contemplating the idea of learning how to sew in zippers. I'm a very new sewer. My sister is the sewer in our family. She's an exceptional sewist, I think sometimes people say. Sewer, sewist, whatever. And she does such nice work that part of it kind of intimidates me. Just she's so much better than I am, but we sort of joke she's the sewer and I'm the knitter in the family. But I did get a sewing machine for Christmas 2 years ago from my husband, and I have figured out some basics on it to make the bags that I make now and to do some mending and things like that. And I am kind of wanting to spend some more time and learn a bit more. I've always been a bit intimidated by sewing machines. I think I learned sewing when I was in high school, like a lot of people do. But I don't know, I felt like the sewing machines and I didn't get along quite so well. I struggled a lot with, I sewed my own dress for graduation, and I think that's the biggest project I've ever made, and turned out pretty well. I was pretty happy with it, but think by the time I was finished that project, that was kind of it for me for sewing for like, give away my age now, but for close to 40 years. Yeah, so it's very recent that I picked it up again. My sister has helped me a bit, and I need to go and spend a bit more time with her and get a few more lessons and stuff and learn some things like, you know, getting over being scared of putting in zippers and things like that. But anyway, bags, that's where I was. The last bag I showed, again, this is one of the ones I made. So this is the, it's a smaller size, or sock size drawstring. I love the lining in this one. Anyway, I haven't done as much sewing as I should in the last couple of months. It takes away from, between work and then it takes away from my knitting time, but I really need to get back at it. I have a ton of beautiful fabrics I'll sort of cut out to do bags, and I just have to get around to doing a bunch more bags. Sort of restock my shop on Etsy, and then I'll show those off and talk about those more on the podcast in a later episode. So anyway, those are my whips. Those 3. I'll talk to you a little bit about what I'm wearing, which is, this is the Hitofude cardigan by Hiroko Fukatsu. Very popular pattern. Tons and tons of people have made this. It's a great pattern. If you're thinking about it, I actually highly recommend it. It's much easier to knit than it looks like. It seems a bit intimidating because it's got an unusual construction. You start with all of the stitches, like you do a provisional cast on, and you start with the stitches of the sleeve and you knit around. So you knit up and around like that. It makes a big long sort of tube that's open in the middle, and then you pick up some stitches and you knit down the body. So Hitofude apparently means single brush stroke in Japanese calligraphy, and the idea is that this is sort of a single strand of yarn. Of course, it takes more balls of yarn than one. But if you had one enormous fingering weight size ball of yarn, you could theoretically knit this without ever having to, I think, cut the yarn or add in a new ball or whatever. So you knit the sleeves, then you knit down the body, and then you cast off and you're done. And you just have to trust the pattern, I found. It can, like I said, it can seem a little intimidating, but if you kind of just go for it and trust the pattern. And one of the things I really like about it is it looks good on everybody. I have not seen anybody knit this sweater that it didn't look flattering on. It seemed like it didn't matter your body shape or size, or, you know, whether you were tall and thin or short and round, or, you know, whatever your body type might be, you can alter the sweater quite easily. What I did with mine is I made it longer in the front than the pattern. It sort of can be pretty short and swingy if you followed exactly the pattern, but I did some more body repeats, so I made the body a bit longer, which suited me better, and it made the way that it increases, because it sort of bells out as you knit down. It's a sort of a swingy cardigan, lightweight cardigan, and I made those increases a little more gradual, which also looked better on me. And so I'm really happy with how it turned out. It's one of the first sweaters that I made that I really, really was pleased with how it turned out. The color, which it's looking a little redder on screen than it's like a really, really hot orange red. It's like a bright tomato color in real life. The yarn I used for this was Manos del Uruguay, the Alegria, which is a fingering base, and it's a wool and nylon blend, and the color is called Solar Flare. And yeah, I love it. It's nice. It's lightweight because it's fingering weight, and it's all over lace, so it's, you know, airy. You can it's a nice spring, fall kind of cardigan. Throw it over things, and your mind has to go over the right sort of things because it's a strong color. But I tend to wear a lot of black and stuff, neutrally colors in my basic wardrobe. So a nice pop of color, it goes with a fair amount of black or white, things I own like that. So anyway, that's what I'm wearing today. Sorry, I wet my whistle a little. So the last thing that I was going to talk about in terms of projects is one more thing that's coming up that I will probably cast on tomorrow. which is another pair of socks. Now, last week I talked about this a little bit, and no surprise if you watched past episodes before, and I've mentioned that one thing you'll learn about me is I change my mind a lot, and I've changed my mind about what this project is going to be. I'm doing a pair of Cookie A socks. There are a couple of KALs. I actually have found like 5 KALs that this one project fits into, which is always kind of fun. I'll talk a little bit more in a minute about sort of how I approach KALs, in case you don't know, knit-alongs. But this project is kind of fun because it fits in a whole bunch of different people's knit-alongs, and allows it to be something that I want to do. So the impetus for it was that two local podcasts, The Fawn Knits, which is Lara of The Fawn Knits has a podcast. She's also the dyer of the Fawn and the Fox yarn that I showed you. She and another podcaster, Candace from here in Calgary as well, Pin Feathers and Pearls. The two of them are jointly running a knit-along of Cookie A socks. And it starts May 1st, and I think it goes till the end of June, I think. You can check in their threads but I'm pretty sure it's May 1st to the end to June 31st. And it's any pair of Cookie A socks. So I knit lots of Cookie A socks in the past, and I always really enjoy her patterns. She's got everything from some pretty straightforward and pretty simple ones to some very complex and challenging ones. Almost all of her patterns have lace or cable or lace and cable combined. I think all of her patterns have some versions of that combined. She uses lots of twisted stitches and stuff like that. So I had thought about a different yarn and a different pattern when I talked about it last week, and I've changed my mind because I thought it would be fun to, like I said, fit this into a number of other knit-alongs as well. So the yarn I have settled on now, and I'm 99% sure that this is what I'm going to go with, is this really, really pretty. It's from TheCyborgs CraftRoom. It's in her Sparkleate base. You can see that there's sparkle in it, and oh, so much color. All these colors. It's just, that's actually showing it really beautifully true. I've got at least a half dozen skeins of her yarn plus a sweater's quantity, which I'll show you in a moment. So I'm going to do a pattern by Cookie A called the Hedera socks, and I'll show you a picture of those if my iPad, come on, there we go. They're these. Can I do it without too much glare? It's not too bad. Yeah, you can see there, they're a really pretty all over lace pattern. I've actually knit these socks before years ago, like 6-7 years ago. So I thought it'd be fun to knit them again. And I ended up changing my mind and settling on this yarn because Molly of a Homespun House also has a knit along going that's for sparkly yarn, and it's a long-term KAL. I think it's 4 or 5 months long KAL, and it's anything sparkly. So this will also go beautifully into her KAL. So and then I settled on that particular pattern. I changed my mind from a couple other patterns I was thinking on and settled on Hedera because it's also lace. And I will also probably enter it into the 10,000 Stitches podcast, May and June knit along, which is her knit along number 3 for the year, which is lace socks. And I'll talk about her podcast more towards the end here. So yeah, and I forgot, there's one more. Also Fairy Little, that's not the name of her podcast, the Twitch and Stitch podcast. But Marsha, who's Fairy Little on Ravelry and Instagram and all those things, she has I think maybe year-long KAL, I'm not sure. But anyway, KAL going right now that's called the Double Dip. And you can enter anything into that KAL that you're also entering into another KAL. So this is going to go in like 5 different knit-alongs. So that's just kind of fun. I'm just doing that because it seems fun. So yeah, I think I'll cast these on tomorrow, which is May 1st. So yeah, there's those. And then speaking of, so let's talk a bit more about KALs. Speaking of KALs, I have done lots of knit-alongs over the years. in different groups and some with different podcasts, and I really enjoy them. I mean, I find them often to be inspiring in terms of getting me to think about a different project or a different yarn, you know, picking things that I might not have picked otherwise. But what I found over time was I tended to cast on a lot of things, and that I didn't necessarily finish. I would say probably 50% of the projects that I was knitting on, I didn't necessarily finish. This, by the way, I forgot to say, this was also actually for a knit along in the Skein Yarn group for a shawl knit along. Now, I had already decided to do this, and then I saw that Kristen was running 2 knit alongs, a sweater and a shawl knit along, both of which I already had planned. So it was like, awesome, I've already got those planned. That's just a little bit of a kick in the pants to finish it in the right amount of time. So this is going to be entered in that. But yeah, I found often that I wasn't finishing. I ended up with sometimes a lot of projects on the needles, not all of which I finished, and I would kind of cast on for this knit along and cast on for that knit along. So lately what I try to do is cast on projects for if I have a project that I want to do that I'm sort of planning to do anyway, and if it fits into a knit along, or if I can tweak it a tiny bit and it fits in a knit along, then I will definitely do that. I don't worry hugely about whether I finish it in time, because I'm not really doing it for the prizes. Although, I mean, the Skein Yarn ones, the larger projects like the sweaters and shawls, are always nice to be able to, for me to be able to enter into, because she gives away pretty substantial gift certificates to her shop for more of her yarn. And since I am completely addicted to her yarn, that's an awesome prize. So those ones I do try to do if I can. It also kind of encourages me to use up some of my enormous stash of skein yarn. And I've knit for lots of her knit alongs. So, but in general, my rule of thumb tends to be, I only do it these days if it's a project that I kind of wanted to do anyway, if it was in my queue or it's something I've been thinking about, or like I said, if I can just tweak it a little bit, if it's just about which yarn, what yarn I choose to do it in, or if it's, I knew I was going to cast on another pair of socks, and so this is just helps me with what pair of socks I might choose, and I know I always like cookie socks anyway, so that's a good choice. But I try nowadays to stay away from doing too many, excuse me, too many crazy cast-ons of things that come along in knit-alongs that I might not have, if they weren't on my radar before, just because I can get myself into a state where I have 20 whips sitting around and 2/3 of them take forever to finish or don't get finished at all and eventually get frogged, or on and on and on. So, but I knew I wanted to kind of do a couple of knit-alongs in my group, ironically. But I really felt like what I wanted to do was sort of pick knit-alongs that fit the way I like to do knit-alongs. So I'm going to start a knit-along that's going to start tomorrow, May 1st, and we'll run through all of May and June. And what I'm calling it the Late to the Party KAL. And what it is any project that you have seen lots and lots of other knitters knit, and that it's been very wildly popular, but you've never done it. And I picked that kind of idea because there's lots of projects in my queue that fit that criteria. There's stuff that it's like, I know I really want to knit that. I mean, this would be a good example. If you've seen lots of Hitofudes and you've always thought, I want to knit that, that's beautiful, and this might be your impetus to start it, because this would fit in that. So the criteria are, it has to be a project on Ravelry that has more than 4,000 projects knitted or started by other people, and it has to and you just have to do it between the beginning of May and the end of June. And it can be any kind of project that fits into that category. So I've made a bundle of patterns using the Ravelry feature. I created a bundle that is a whole bunch of examples of stuff that you could do. There's some socks in that bundle. There's like great things like monkey socks. I don't know, there's maybe 7,000 or 8,000 projects of monkey socks. And if you've never done monkey socks, they're fun and they're easy, and they're a great kind of introduction to a pattern sock. or maybe you've knit lots of socks, but you've just, for whatever reason, never done the monkey socks. So there's patterns like the monkey socks, or the Hedera socks that I'm doing. Those fit in that category. So those will kind of be for my own KAL as well. There's socks, there's hats I put in there. There's like, you could do the sock head hat. You could do the Ricky hat. There's lots and there's several sock patterns, several hat patterns, some fingerless glove patterns, some sweater patterns, some shawl patterns. And the good news is quite a few of these patterns, I would say about at least half of what I put into that bundle are also free patterns. That's one of the reasons why they've had so many projects done, is they've been offered for free. So you might be able to find something, but really the idea is to take that popular pattern that you've seen a million other knitters make and that you'd like to make, and a little bit of a kickstart to do it. So it'd be great if you want to come and join and knit along. I will have some prizes. I don't know quite what they are yet, but I will pull them together and show them off a little bit later in the summer. All you have to do is come over to our Ravelry group, which is the Creative Mojo group, and join the group, and you'll get all the information about the knit along there. And the other thing, my Hedera socks will fit into that. And the other thing that I'm going to do once I finish the cardigan that I've been working on recently, which is the drifting cardigan. I didn't show it today because I didn't do any work on it this week, but once I finish that, I'm going to cast on the featherweight cardigan by Hannah Fettig, which is another pattern that totally fits into this category of the late to the party. And it's something I've been planning to do for a long time, and I thought, oh, this is my good excuse to get that on the needle. So I picked out some yarn for that. This is beautiful yarn that was actually gifted to me from one friend through another friend. A long story, but she was destashing a lot of fingering weight yarn. Bless her heart, it was incredibly kind of her to pass this along. And so I got actually 5 skeins of this. It's more TheCyborgs CraftRoom. Oh, it says it's in the Asako base as well, but this is not the sparkly one. Oh, this one I lied. This is a sparklate Asako. See if I can get a good sort of sense. It's like cream and navy with tiny little pops of red in it, and the navy is like, it's lighter blue and darker blue, and it gets a bit gray in spots. It's really pretty, and it feels to me pretty neutral. It's kind of color, like it's got color like I like things with color, as you probably tell, but it's neutral enough. It feels like it will go with a fair number of things. So this is this is a 75 superwash merino, 25 nylon. So yeah, this is going to be featherweight cardigan that I've got like 5 skeins of it, so lots. So that will be the other thing that I'm going to work on. So yeah, come over to the group, read about the KAL, see if that's something you're interested in. The one exception, actually, I forgot to mention this. The one exception that I'm going to make to it must have 4,000 projects or more already in Ravelry is if you've never knit any socks before, you can do a vanilla sock. If this is your first sock, because there are a couple of vanilla sock patterns. I think Susan B. Anderson has one, Stephanie Pearl McPhee has one. There's some great Ann Budd ones. There are a number, and if you added all those up together, they're certainly well over 4,000 vanilla socks knit. So if you've never knit any socks at all before and you would like to use this as an excuse to try a sock, I'll make the one exception that you can do a vanilla sock, linking whatever vanilla sock pattern that you find and use, whether it's got 4,000 projects to that particular pattern or not. So that's the KAL. The other thing I should mention, I guess, in terms of the group is that I'm doing a giveaway. I talked about this last week. I'm giving away this beautiful skein yarn from Australia. This is one of our older tags, actually, so this one's been in the stash for a while, but this beautiful, the color is called Before the Storm. It's her top draw sock base. It's fingering weight 437 yards. 85% superwash merino and 15% nylon. Soft, really, really a soft yarn, but it's got nylon in it. So I've used it for socks. I've used it for garments, shawls. You can use this yarn base for all kinds of things, and it works perfectly fine. I haven't put holes in any of my skein top draw socks yet. I would recommend you do it to a pretty tight gauge if you knit socks, just because it's a very soft yarn, so it's going to be not have as much structure to it. But if you do it to a pretty tight gauge, and you can machine wash it if you have a delicate. I wash all my socks, to be really honest, in the machine. I have a great delicate cycle on my washing machine. I do them by themselves, just socks, but I'll usually do maybe 20 pairs at a time in the machine on the delicate cycle on cold with a little bit of wool wash, and then I lay them flat to dry. And I do all my socks, even the ones that aren't superwash wool, like that. And I haven't had any serious problems with felting or shrinking or anything. So that's my advice for what it's worth. But anyway, I'm giving this beautiful, beautiful skein away to one lucky winner. So if you haven't done it already, come over to the group on Ravelry, join the group, and there's a thread in there for this giveaway. And I've asked you to tell me a little bit about what your favorite yarn is, either what your favorite yarn base might be, or what your favorite dyer or colors or whatever. Tell me something about what you like to knit with. And next week I will pick a draw name for this. So in terms of stash, yes, I got some stash, and I've got a bit more coming. I've done a couple of little internet shops recently. Bad me, but couldn't resist it. You know, Instagram, such a terrible, terrible enabler, Instagram. Because I follow a lot of yarn dyers, and I see pretty yarn there, and then I can't stop myself sometimes. So I got 2 skeins of yarn from Western Sky Knits from Kim, who Western Sky Knits, if you don't know, is 2 different dyers, and they live in 2 different places. But these yarns are from Kim in Montana. They're so pretty. This color is called Sunrise, and on the one end it's this like fuchsia pink, and then on the other end it's more cream, and it's got all these great, there's little pops of orange here and blue, and there's some green. It's like super pretty, and I love it. And then I also got this one, which I also love. This is called Cake Sprinkle, and it's just, as I said before, you can see I like lots of color. That's my thing. People always ask me favorite colors, and I couldn't tell you a favorite color. I like all color and lots of color. So yeah, those are my 2 Western Sky Knits. I'll link those in the show notes that are in my Ravelry group if you are interested in looking at more of her stuff, because it's gorgeous. So what else do I want to getting on in time here, but I had a question from Michelle in the group. She asked me a little bit about how long I've been knitting and how I got started, and so I thought I'd quickly touch on that. I've been knitting seriously since about 2002, I think. 2002, 2003. I learned, actually, like a lot of people, I learned as a kid from my mother. My mother was a kind of occasional knitter. She knew how to knit. She learned from her grandfather, which I think is really cool. I think he knit socks. And he taught her how to knit. And she knit things on and off when I was a child. Like, she'd knit something and then she wouldn't knit anything for a while. She usually knit garments. I actually brought up, she gave me this recently. It's a dress she knit for me when I was a wee tiny baby. And it's very pretty. Unfortunately, it was made in the 60s. It's like some kind of serious acrylic, and it doesn't feel very nice. Like, I probably didn't know any better when I was a little child wearing this, but it's not really something I'm super eager to pass on to somebody else with a child, because it's not the nice. I don't know, maybe I'll wash it up again and see if it feels any nicer, but it is very sort of acrylic-y, kind of weird, funny feeling, but it's beautiful. And so she knit that. So she taught me the basics of knitting when I was a kid. And I did a little bit of it, but it didn't really take, and I wasn't super interested. And then I had I think, like I said, 2002 or 2003, can't remember which. I was working with a friend. I was working on a couple of plays with a friend who was learning how to knit, and we were hanging out together quite a bit, and it just looked like fun. So she was learning, and so I sort of picked it up, and I knew I remembered real basics. I remembered, she reminded me, she taught me how to cast on, and I thought I remembered how to do the basic knit stitch. As it turned out, because this is the first thing I ever knit as an adult, which was a scarf. It's in a cotton yarn, I think. I wore this a ton, but you can see if you look up close, it's garter stitch, but let's see if you can see that. It's twisted garter stitch. The whole thing, both sides, I knit through the back loop, not knowing that that's not a normal knit stitch. So after that, I kind of figured out, but it made a really actually cool and interesting texture. So I sort of took it up with my friend Shannon, and she and I were sort of learning how to knit together, and we would get together and hang out and make, we did a lot of like scarves and little wrist warmers and, pretty simple things. And then from there, I got interested in a few other things, and it was really getting interested in socks that sort of I took off from there with socks. I got a book and I taught myself how to knit socks from Ann Budd's Getting Started Knitting Socks book. And then I discovered Ravelry, and a whole world of tons of other knitting projects and possibilities opened up to me that way. And I'm for the most part, an entirely self-taught knitter from books. I also used the Stitch and Bitch book, taught me a lot. Videos on YouTube and looking at stuff on Ravelry and reading people's notes and asking questions, and all of that was sort of how I taught myself how to knit. So yeah, and I've been knitting, I was a bit on and off and for the first couple of years, but certainly since about 2007, I think, when I joined Ravelry, I've been knitting intensely since then. So what is that, 9 years? And a couple of years, little bits of knitting and learning before that. So yeah, that's a bit about how I got started knitting and how long I've been knitting. So that's about everything. The last thing I just wanted to mention, I'm just, sorry, looking at my notes here to make sure I'm not forgetting anything else. The last thing I wanted to mention was a couple of podcasts specifically that I've been enjoying watching. I've discovered a lot of new podcasts recently. I watched mostly podcasts on iTunes, and I still have some podcasts that I love watching and I watch on iTunes, and I'll talk a bit more about a few of those ones that I've been watching for a long time on a later episode. But I've been finding more so many new podcasts on YouTube recently and getting into some new ones. And I usually try and watch a couple of episodes at least before, to make sure that, I like to give them a few tries to make sure if it's something I like. It's interesting to watch how people grow in their podcast, and so you got to give them, I think, more than one chance before you decide if it's for you or not. And there's a couple that I've been specifically really, really enjoying that I wanted to give a mention to in case there was something that you might like. One of them is the Lone Larch podcast with Jenny, and Jenny is also from here in Alberta. She lives also in Olds, Alberta, about an hour and a half north up the highway. And I'm really liking her podcast. I just find her so fun and charming, and she sort of reminds me of some people that I know, and just in her personality. And I think it took her a few episodes to really find her feet, but it's fantastic now how she, in addition to being a knitter, obviously, and a mom and those kind of things, she's also an arborist, and she is doing almost all of her podcasts these days from outdoors in different locations all over the place. And she's talking a lot about what she does and about being an arborist and about trees and nature, and I just find it fascinating. Like, it's different from who I am and what I do, and I think that's great. I think I'm learning some really lovely, interesting new things in addition to seeing her lovely knitting. I just feel like I'm getting to know something about her as a person and getting a little peek into a different person's life, and it's fabulous. I'm really, really, really enjoying it, and I highly recommend it. And I think, stick in there and stick with her and watch her, find her feet, and you probably become as attached to her podcast as I've become. And the other one is something I just started watching a couple of days ago. And again, she's sort of finding her feet, but in the early episodes, but I really enjoy it, is called 10,000 Stitches. And I enjoy it with Andy, and I enjoy her podcast because she's going on this journey that is fantastic to follow along with and watch. And it's that she's a sock knitter. That's basically what she knits. And she's decided that 2016, she was going to knit 50 pairs of socks, and she's gone on this, but she has a budget, and so she's trying to, source her yarns. She doesn't have a huge stash when she starts out, and she's trying to source her yarns affordably and learn about all these different kinds of techniques to socks, lace and cables and all that kind of thing. And she's doing 2-month knit-alongs with the different techniques as she goes. And it's just really fun to kind of watch her on this journey, and she's interesting too. She's a physicist, I think, and yeah, she's a young gal, and I just think it's really fun what she's doing. So those 2 podcasts, I'll link them in the show notes, but that's the Lone Larch podcast and 10,000 Stitches. So I've run again longer than I think this podcast is going to end up being 45 to 50 minutes, despite my best intentions. But so that's it for this week. I'm going to let you go. As I said, I'll tack in a photograph here at the end of my finished Vertices Unite shawl. Thank you all for watching. Please come over and join the group on Ravelry, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And hopefully I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.